welcome everyone to the stream. We're going to do a little bit of unboxing and miniatures assembly today. And we're going to start with this lad. We've got Cup of Tea, critical for any miniatures assembly effort. And the next wave pack. And there's a glyph warcore over there that we may even get to as well. I hope everyone has had a chance to have a look at the next wave preview or release profiles that went up last night. That was a fun time to record. And now, let's have a look at some miniatures. So this is the Juggernaut. I wanted to start with him because I have actually a request with regards to a certain physiological feature that we need to check and see. Now my understanding, that's lovely. My understanding for this gentleman is that he is Unicool, which is the new CB material I've actually not had a ton of chance to work with. But that is some incredibly crisp detailing. We've got the base in there, no missing parts from the looks of it. That's really nice. We'll pack that open. There is our interestingly shaped tactical rock. Cool, and yeah, gonna have opinions. Gonna have opinions about that silhouette. One of the things we've got here, and this is gonna leap out immediately, is that his hands are baked into the rock. Now that is not a game ender, but it really does mean you're kind of married to this in terms of basing. And if you've seen my combined army, I've got a hex base. Rumbleroo Comics asks, are these out now or did you get a review set? Interesting question. I got a review set, however, they are available for pre-order and there are some almost certainly in the wild somewhere. If you're in Australia and you're in Melbourne, there is a convention called PAX that is on right now, and they have copies of these there for sale. So there are certainly some of these out in the wild. So we'll see plenty of people have access to them. But yes, Corvus Belli was very kind and sent some of the content creators out not just access to the profiles, which is what got to do the video at midnight last night, but also some miniatures, which is really nice of them. This is not a sponsored stream. I am completely entitled to my own opinions, fair criticism, etc. But yes, this was part of Corvus Belli's creator program. Alrighty. So this is pretty cool. This is a very nice crisp material. There's some really, you can actually even just see it there. Look how crisp the edge is along that. I do like this stuff, but we're going to have to do some sub-assembly here because my basing, I've got a hex base, and to make this not look kind of weird, there'll need to be a little bit of work done to this. All right, let's have a look at the main guy himself. So we've got, this looks like the body. Legs with the blades. How are we doing for things like casting on this? Yeah, no issues as far as I can tell. Might be a tiny little bit of sprue residue there, but it's barely noticeable. That is very nice. And since I was asked to check, that looks like the torso there. That would be the closest, Ryan, to the physiological feature that you were asking about. So I would say probably no in this particular context. Does not have the feature you were curious about. So that looks like it'll go in like that. I'm pretty comfortable with that as a sub-assembly, actually. That's very nice. And then we'll have... Yeah, Josh says, love the Unicool, painting his Juggernaut now, and it's a dream. Yeah, I've not had a chance to work with this material like at all before. But if we look at something like... So this is the sword, we'll bump the sword. We can see a bit of sprue flash there. Not unmanageable, but otherwise very crisp detailing. We will need to be very careful getting that little bit of sprue flash there off. And we've got the rider. And again, a little bit of sprue flash just there and there. There's some like wispy residue, but all things considered, you deal with the same thing on a metal miniature. Resin would be much worse. Yeah, a bit there as well. That's the Juggernaut's head. They do have a sprue entry point right on that smooth surface, but it is a smooth surface, so we can probably manage that. Let's check this fit. Always try. Oh, yep, that's clean. So, I don't know if you can see this. That's our entry point there for the Juggernaut, and that just really smooth, no visible join. That's what you want. When you're like any kind of miniature, you always want to have, if you've got these nested joins, really try and make it so that it's not obvious. That looks super cool. All right, we've got his back legs here. Again, a little bit of whatever, you can just about see it underneath the gun barrel there. Tiny little bit of sprue residue, nothing really significant. It looks very nice. Yeah, all right, so we've got all the pieces that we need. So let's get this guy cleaned up, trying not to cut myself on stream. And then get this guy assembled, and that'll be number 1. Then we'll crack into the action pack. Rumble Roo Comics asks, I wonder if Aleph will make some more heroes after their loss. Hercules, maybe. The Steel Phalanx, and generally, so how does this cut? Literally never worked with this stuff before. Oh yeah, that cuts basically like a fairly rigid plastic. I know that Unicool these days is like, yep, cool, people are familiar with it, but I'm not, and that's a very nice cut. All right, good. There have been a number of characters that have been sort of like teased or speculated. Odysseus, Josh mentions bring back Odysseus. Odysseus featured, right? Like he was actually a member of the Homeridae and then disappeared, which obviously is very apropos. Someone give me the background on that if you know how that one went down. But the Hercules is a notable, we've never seen this, and it would be a pretty interesting addition. He's obviously a mythological rather than like Homeric myth, you know, blah blah blah. Did the characters actually exist? Was Achilles a real person? How much was Homer making this shit up? And like, I am in no way qualified to. I'm completely not. But they are stories, right? So there's really no reason why, no matter what Homer based his epic on, in terms of, you know, was Troy a real place? I think it was. They've done excavations that was like, you know, trying to find the site of the Trojan War. God, I really should know more about this stuff. This is like easily Googleable. All right, have we fucked up his sword? No, that's okay. So the flash has come off reasonably easily there. I'm going to just tighten up the curve on that. But I want to not overdo this because this is one of the ones. Okay, so that once it's that thin, it actually cuts quite easily. So I've got to be careful with that. I've even taken slightly more off the blade than I think I wanted to, but that'll look just fine. Yeah, cool. All right, how much more flash do we have to deal with? Josh says Odysseus was potentially sepsitored and then wiped by Aleph. Okay, maybe, but like it's Odysseus. It's the it's the story. Like there's of course Odysseus at some point is going to turn back up in future. Like that's literally the bit. There's no way that he doesn't. It's just a question of when. He'll turn up after having gone on a long journey. Jazz Gaming asks, there are theories that so Pichan says there are theories that Homer isn't actually a real person. Yeah, I do not know nearly enough about this, which I really should because it's fascinating. Pichan, by all means, feel free to pop some more information about that in the chat. In terms like theories and was he a pen name and if so how and what do we know? Because that's fascinating. Anyway, are the Greeks in Combined Army? Yes, the Greeks are in Combined Army. This actually happened at the beginning of N5. Is that Flash or is that detail? That is Flash. This actually happened at the beginning of N5 when Achilles was basically recruited by Pandora. Pandora has always been a member of the Homeridae who plays the long game, and the conclusion that she came to was that humanity could not, in the long term, resist the evolved intelligence, and that something resembling a peace deal and security and safety for the people in the occupied territories and self-determination, all that jazz. She's a long game player, so she managed to convince Achilles by offering him the one thing. She got the evolved intelligence to offer Achilles the one thing that Aleph wouldn't, which was the return of Patroclus. So Patroclus died in a boarding action, I believe over Concilium, and because of the risk of sepsitorization, specifically with like his backups and his codes having potentially been corrupted, Aleph refused to revive him. Achilles held a funeral, blah blah blah. They were best friends. And Pandora convinced the evolved intelligence to offer Achilles his friend back. And that was enough of a turning point, apparently, which is, you know, not out of character. All right. I am receiving a phone call, which I need to. I just had the other half call me from Melbourne at PAX, and it will be interesting to see what they need because I cannot take a call right now. Do I want an airbrush? They're going to send me through a photo. We've got one airbrush between the two of us. It's technically his because mine is busted, but I use it far more than he does. Yep, that's looking good. You do really want to make sure you get these. These are honestly pretty, as far as plugs go. These are not too hard to sort out. Okay, I think we're in a fairly good spot there. There's a little bit of that like wisp flash. It's kind of old man eyes, a little tricky to. It cleans up fairly easily though. All right. Now, this is a tricky one. There's a plug on the end of that join that we're going to have to, that you might not have noticed if you don't dry fit. We dry fit, and that's now fine. Okay, cool. That's all of our bits. So we can see a smattering here of, like, that's all of the cleaning. That didn't take terribly long. Do I want... How much are they asking? Sparmax, dual action. Yeah, look kind of nice. What are we... This is all just at a booth. I will get back to you, dear. All right. Are you keen to get them on the table? We should do a Loss of Lieutenant versus Rob Shepard. Okay, couple of things here. Firstly, Josh, I would be very keen for a game. I'm not sure how much I want to publicize it. I am out of practice because I have been doing a lot of community building, and that means not playing games when there are odd numbers at the local game store. I try and get pickup games around that, but I'm not exactly match fit. I could play though, certainly. I would really like to have a game with you guys. Catch up with some of you. I've played against Jordan before, but I think... Oh, and... his name starts with J. The other one. God damn it. Tall, stroppy lad. But not against the entire cast. It would be really good to have games with you guys, but spare my dignity and let's not publicize it immediately. All right. This glue should be in fine shape. Pichan says, there isn't... Too long didn't read. There isn't enough evidence one way or the other to prove or disprove the existence of Homer. Some scholars say there are stylistic differences between the Iliad and the Odyssey. That's really interesting, actually, because it's so far in antiquity that, like, it's very believable that multiple people could have used the same pen name. Let's see how badly screwed this glue is. I do have... No, it's quite badly screwed. Cool, that's all right. Past Rob thought of this. And picked this up at the Hobby Stop last night. Now, I've never used this brand before. And when I went and grabbed it, it's just Zap, should just be Zap again. It's thin CA. The game store clerk was like, oh, I think that's plastic glue, mate. I'm like, are you sure? Because it says Bonds, skin, and fingers. And that's usually a sign. Alright. Well, let's see how this goes. Well, that flows quite easily. Yeah, can confirm Bonds, skin, and fingers. All right, let's get the first of these lads in. Now, what we're actually going to do, we're going to do this in two parts. We're going to do both of these at once because I need to make sure that this will dry fit cleanly into that lad, into that base down there. So, there we go, bonk, bonk. And while it's setting up, let's get it in there. Because if that doesn't fit properly, I'll be a sad camper later. So we're basically just holding it in place. This is a sub-assembly. So I'm not going to glue him into the base, but it's really important that he dry fits cleanly, because that way I can work on the base while painting. Alright, now how well does that glue hold? There's just not enough of it there. Alright. Come back to that fascinating question of the Homeridae in a moment. God. Okay. Uh-oh. 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 Certainly bonds skin. Not sure I love this glue. Alright, get that back in there. Well, while that is bonding to my flesh, P-Chan, there are some theories that there was a person, Homer, and he was more of an editor who brought a lot of authors' works together. That's super interesting. And it's one of those things, yeah, the antiquity is the issue. The antiquity is the issue, so we're all working on, like, theories for that time and space. Okay, alright, that's done the trick. Josh has the dreaded Rona. Look, mate, I'm free tomorrow if you want a game. Like, I'm actually like desperate for a game with the Caledonians. What have I done there? Is that glued in? Oh, god damn it. Alright, so this stuff is going to take a little bit of getting used to. But we'll pop that back out. Alright, how would you compare Next Wave to an existing faction / sectorial? Incomplete presently because we're in that pre-order window stage. Like, by necessity, it's incomplete, right? We don't have a full picture. Right now, Josh says, let's do it. Yeah, we'll have a game tomorrow, mate. You've got my details on Discord or in the Melbourne chat, so just hit me up there. The morning is probably mildly better. Like, say, I gotta do gardening, God help me. But, fucking good God, that really wants to stick. Wants to run and then stick to my fingers. Where are we? So, talking about Next Wave versus Sectoral. So, incomplete presently, like, that's the obvious thing, right? We don't have a full picture. Those fire team charts are really, really promising. Like, really promising. There's a ton you can do there, and IJW and Ollie have both gone on record. Ollie's one of the IGL organizer, but also does a bit of work with PB or CB or provides input or something. Have both gone on record as saying that it's incomplete, the fire team chart, and if that fire team chart is not complete, then there's a lot. Like, that's a lot. One of the things that's speculation is that there might be a Unidron fire team, since there's the Nexus operatives have got fire team Unidron. Fuck me, I do not like that glue. This stuff runs like a bastard. It bonds just fine. But I do not like how that stuff just gets away from you. So we'll put that. We will peg this for now. Not necessarily a huge fan. How many things of super glue do I have left? I have... This is just what I would normally use. This stuff is like dollar store. I know how it operates. Yes, it's going to get on my fingers. But I'm more familiar with it. It's not going to hurt everywhere. I will probably keep this. One of the perennial issues I have with Conquest is things dislodging themselves from the base. That's staying sticky. Like, aggressively. And I don't like what it does to the finish when it gets everywhere. So, alright. Sub-assembly 1 done. That slots in... Yep, that slots in nicely to the point where it will rest in there if I wanted to. That's cool. Oh, okay. Stoldron call, fire team or riot. Josh says yes, Ollie's on the testing team. I wasn't sure if that was public or not, Josh, but you said it, so there we go. Okay. It's just a juggernaut I glued to myself several years ago. I've accepted it at this point. Griffline, the quality of the mold is excellent. This is really good. I'm going to use this as the glue point here. Now I'm going to, after having said I know how this dollar store glue operates, yeah, there we go. I was worried I was just going to splurge it all over myself there, but I have managed not to. I mentioned this when I was unboxing the thing. This is a Unicool sculpt, and it is exceptionally clean. Like really crisp detail. I have to assume that the molds for these lads are more expensive to make in the same way that like injected thermoplastic and stuff are. Otherwise, I would just expect this to be like everything. Just make everything out of this. But there have to be material constraints that prevent that from being the case, because when we get to these lads, we're going to see a fair few metal. I opened it before, mostly just to make sure that everything was there. Oh god, okay, thank god I changed back to that. Now, I should have dry fit this. which way does the does the tail go? Oh god. I think, well, I fucked it, haven't I? No, it's got a key. All right, cool. Tail goes like that. God, this is a long boy. This is a long miniature. Josh and Lol. He really said so. International Discord. Okay, cool. All right, we're all good. Yeah, guess how much I'm on international Discord. So yeah, Ollie and IJW have both gone on record as saying the fire team chart is incomplete. And if that fire team chart is incomplete, then there are a lot of things you can do with this faction. Hot damn. God, that's nice. That's really nice. Holy shit. I'm keen. All right. It's got length to it. Now, let's get the sword on. Yeah, that's nice. That's a nice clean join. Ah, the Sea People, raised by that is actually one that I am familiar with as far as ancient mysteries of antiquity go. That is a fascinating little piece of known unknowns. And the Bronze Age collapse and all of that. Yeah, I do have a little bit of familiarity with that stuff. It is fascinating in a kind of like, not morbid exactly, but yep, glued it to myself. Now we got a bit of flex there on how that goes in. Do I want I think we want the arm to just go flush. I think that's just more contact. Okay. Now we have the question of how much do I want to sub-assembly this lass, because there is a bit of an argument for leaving her to be painted separately, but also I want to play with this thing. We'll do the other arm for now, and then kind of figure it out. Are you going to try dipping and change poses? No. I am not. Firstly, I don't think any of the joins. So the question that was asked was, am I going to try dipping this in hot water to change the poses? I don't know how receptive this is to that as a technique. And frankly, I don't think anything other than maybe the tail, given how it assembles and poses, you'd be putting yourself at risk in terms of like the key joins. So no, probably not. If it was out of the box, there was an issue with the what do you call it? If out of the box there was an issue with like a bendy sword, which you'll see sometimes on, doesn't like that. Resin miniatures often have that be a thing. And even sometimes plastic, other like inferior plastics. A good injected plastic should not have the issue. This is a good injected plastic. But yeah, I'm not, there's nothing about this, like the spines. you could maybe do something with, but they're sculpted in such a specific way. I think the material science, you just come a cropper. All right, cool. So she's good. So we can glue her. We can glue her in, or we can leave her as a sub-assembly. I don't actually think I'm making my life colossally easier, but there are some parts of that miniature that would be. We're going to do this the cheats way for now. We're going to take the coward's way out. Bit of blue tack. And that'll do the trick. Unicool. Boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew. Unicool goes great with boiling water. You fixed all of the Black Angel's lances with it. Okay, cool. So did you have issues with bendy lances, Josh, on the Black Angels? Was that a thing? Glue's still not drying. All right, there we go. There's the big lad. He can stay in frame for a bit. God, that's really nice. One of the things that I'm sort of like on record as gets me going in terms of miniatures is what we'd call implied motion. And you can get that on a model that's like jumping, but this guy just, oh yeah, that's my jam. That's the stuff. All right, let's have a cup of tea. Absolutely not muting myself for that. All right, buddy, you can sit in frame. And let's move on. So clear down and open up the next thing. Boop. Now we're going to need a file for these. What part of Australia are you from? Originally, I am from Queensland. These days, I reside in the Australian Capital Territory because I work with the government. One of the weird little mysteries of YouTube is if we had $1 for every Australian YouTuber who makes PowerPoint slides with a defense and technology procurement background, we'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. Alrighty, let's crack this open. So, there's the actual openable box. Pretty standard. Ah, we got another Unicool. Alright, the Tech Draken. This is the other guy that I'm most excited for. So we've got a Tech Draken. We've got some guns in a random sprue. So we'll get this a little bit organized. That'll be the iron side. That looks self-contained. There's our first Rain Dancer. A lot of light glare there. We'll just... Well, there's our first Rain Dancer. There's our Cliff Jumper, and that might be where this shotgun is from. Got a lot of metal we've got access to, and this is a lot of miniatures. What have we got here? This is be one of the troopers. Not sure what she's packing. That'll be the hacker. We'll want to get her assembled. We've got some more line infantry. We'll go through each of these. These are just Corvus Belli standards. Yeah, more line infantry. So it looks like we've got everything in here. This will be... That's Pandora. Get to her as well. She's a profile I really like. Cliff Racers. Sorry, I misspoke. Genuinely and sorry, then we've got the other Rain Dancer. And we've got all the bases, so it looks like we've got everything that we need here. So for now, what we're going to do is going to move some of this off camera. We'll pop that light back on. I'm going to need that to be organized. And let's get started. So we're going to begin with the model that I'm most excited for, which is the Tech Draken. Duh. 'Cause dragons. So we'll get all of these lads just off screen for now, or near enough to. Don't need our file just yet. So this is another Unicool. Good to see. Nuka Ooze says, "Hey, good to see you in the community evolving with Next Wave." Pichan, Secret Agent Rob. No, nothing so interesting. All right. Procurement is an interesting career, but it's not Exciting. All right, we got a few different parts here. This all looks like it goes together fairly cleanly. There are, much like the other lad, there's some big plugs on this, but they're all fairly obvious. I like, you can see that there. I see some very big plugs on this one, which is not a concern because they're all at points that like join with the miniature or thereabouts. One slightly obvious one there. Here's a Cliff Racer story. So in Conquest, the Last Argument of Kings, there is a model called a Quattle, or a Winglord Predator. If you Google either of those, you'll see the thing. I have a mate who owns 6 of the things, and I have another mate who has proxied them, or run a couple. And it turns out that certain neural pathways get carved into your brain when you're a young person, because I was playing a game against one of these lists. I think there were 3 of the things on the table at the time, and they're giant pterodactyls. And someone walked up behind me, and I didn't even notice it at first. They just had on their phone the Morrowind combat music playing. And I didn't hear it. I just started feeling tense for reasons that I could not explain. And then the motherfucker put his phone up next to my ear and played the Cliff Racer noise. And it was one of the most, like, visceral experiences. Like, you don't have the right to hijack my neural pathways like that. That's just, oh, it was such a moment. I have forgiven him for it because it was pretty damn peak, but my goodness. All right. So that's cleaned up. Have you managed to get any games in against players from other countries? In both Conquest and Infinity, yes, although certainly not recently. But back during the dark times, I played. I think I actually played in the first ever online tournament, um, literally ever, and managed to play against quite a few international players. There's a very good Polish player called Projan, who I played against in the finals. I think those videos are all still online actually. If you go way back to like the very dark lore, you go and find the White Noise YouTube channel. You'll see those games. And then I played in the IGL, the first IGL team tournament, with just a mix of. Actually, I played alongside an international team, which had Persian in it. That was a good time. And I played against, I think, mostly Americans. Now, I have a shopper at PAX who is asking me, do I want? God, please do not buy 40k. No, those are all 40k things. Those are just pins. And no, but thank you. Okie doke. And I think the biggest look in terms of appraisals of other matters. Firstly, you've got to be real careful talking about this because it's very easy to just descend into shit talk. But actually, really, the biggest difference is if you want to observe differences between Infinity communities, mostly try and get a bit of an appraisal for what kind of tables you play on, because that's one of those little like it's those one of those little meta things where we can compare lists, but then you go to look at the tournament tables and you're like, oh, they're very similar in this way. Oh, actually, they're different in this way. Oh, you've got to deal with, and like every tournament does this. Every tournament anywhere in the world, you look at the photographs and you go, God, that's not quite enough terrain, is it, mate? But it will vary very much, the extent to how common that is. It absolutely happens in Australia. It absolutely happens in the US. But then you get into the global, the IGL Global League, and you have a different phenomenon, which is actually there is zero terrain limitation because it's all in a virtual context. So you have people that go a little bit crazy on terrain, but then you also have, and this is what eventually stopped me from playing in Global League events, was if you wanted to go really in on it, and this is probably the biggest differentiator, because the tables are known in advance, people would play practice games over and over and over on a table because round 4 is on this table. And that just threw me back too much to the old War Machine days. And you cannot turn this hobby into a job. There are people who get really competitive, and like Lord knows I am a competition focused, I am a competitive player. That's a lovely clean join. But the moment you give wargamers the opportunity to, they will optimize the fun out of a game. And one of the ways you can optimize the fun out of infinity is by playing the same map over and over and over and over and over. IGL tables are really solid. Like, generally speaking, they are very sound. They produce pretty good game experiences. You've got to make that translation from TTS measurement, like not measurement, TTS visualization, right? The eyeball has to adjust. But you'll have very solid tables, very sound players, very, very good, particularly the top end of the IGL, very good players. But that's probably the major culture differentiator, is that they are able to play over and over on literally the exact same table with zero variations, and that produces some interesting externalities. But because because of how I play and because I've got that old War Machine like competition vibe, I would fall prey to the you practice and practice and practice. Um, all right, just in the interests of answering the other question that Ryan from Melbourne had, yeah, also no undercarriage there. Cool. We've now checked 2 fucking robotic animals for anywhere. All right, that'll go in nice and easy. One of the little rules interactions, and I'll get back to chat in just a second. This is actually something that someone popped in the YouTube comments to the Next Wave video, and I had completely spaced on, and actually kind of expect might change, but I'm not sure. This would be something to ask one of the playtest team maybe. Is that the Fireteam Master skill is really loosely worded right now. Oh, that's nice. That is a lovely miniature. Let's find a base. Yeah, stuff it. We'll just put him here for the moment. Does he stand by himself? Yeah, if I pop his tail underneath that. Okay, not much clean down there. Anyway, so Fireteam Master. So one of the idiosyncrasies of the Fireteam Master skill is that its positive effect, which is that it turns troopers irregular to regular in a fire team, is not gated at all behind troop type. Any irregular trooper in a team with Fireteam Master becomes regular. And I actually did not cotton on that. I was like, surely Fireteam Master Shadows indicates that Shadows become irregular. Shadows become regular. No, actually anything in a team with a Fireteam Master becomes regular. And then you have the negative side, which is that if the Fireteam Master Shadow character dies, then the Fireteam breaks. And those are not connected. So it's actually Pandora, for example, who has Fireteam Master Shadows, wants to be leading a fire team comprised of irregular troopers that aren't Shadows, because that way the fire team will stay intact if she dies. And I don't think that's how the rule is meant to work. That's a little weird, to be perfectly honest, and I completely missed that in the video. So the video list where there are 2 Tech Draken Steeljaws operates on the assumption that they are irregular, but nope, actually they would be regular in that list, which massively changes the dynamic. So, I don't know. I think they might change that because it's one of those, like, surely it's not meant to work that way. But whatever, in the meantime, I'm going to link Pandora with dinosaurs. Okay, just get some glue on this and then we'll... Oh, there's a little bit of flash there that I missed. We're not going to overglue this because I'm going to want to break this off in future. I think we put the body facing and the gun facing directly forward. And we'll pop him relatively far back on the base. Okay, there we go. Hands very much in the way here. Now there was something I wanted to check. Because I've only got one of these guys. And I already know I've written one list that might want 2. I think you could get away with that. I don't want to repaint this as a combined army miniature. But just in the short term, I think you could get away with that. If I put him on a medium base. That's a consideration. Alrighty. So, P-Chen says, I'm not familiar with IGL, but familiar with TTS. Yeah, so Tabletop Simulator is the platform. IGL plays on Tabletop Simulator. IGL stands for Infinity Global League, and they run tournaments. They've got a Discord. I'm not in the Discord because for a little while it was slightly too full of slightly too brain rotted people, and the voices were just like the ignore list got too long. But the organizers are really good people. Ollie, at least I'm not sure if Ollie still does it, but they were the primary organizer, and they're one of those people that they just care an enormous amount about everything. They're excellent folks. All right, this is the Contrabandolero. Now we're getting into the metal miniatures. These went together like a dream. More unicool. Also, just as a bit of a point, does that look like a saddle to you? Because that looks like a saddle to me. And I'm just saying, Corvus Belli, if you give me more dinosaurs with people riding them, I will buy the maximum availability. Like immediately. Because I am addicted to cavalry and science fiction games. Seriously, pop a dude on that. Give us a Blackheart, a Tech Draken rider. Oh. Alright. Did IGL start over COVID, or was it around before them? I think basically the shift to TTS was as a pandemic period thing. There might have been because to my recollection, the very first. Now I've got a pair of God hands here, and if I use them for metal, my other half will reasonably kill me. So the very first online tournament using TTS, to my knowledge, was the White Noise online event. That was literally the first ever TTS tournament. White Noise ran and hosted it. It was during the very beginning of the pandemic, and IGL emerged basically in the months/years that followed. I'll leave the plug on her base for now. This isn't on her foot. There we go. Not a plug exactly. It's meant to be able to let you slot things into bases. No, I will remove that. I don't use those. They're very sensible. I just don't have the patience for it. All right. Her hair is a separate piece. This is hair. That's okay. Forgive me for this. That's hilarious. We might just do that now before I do anything else, because if I lose that, I'm going to think it's Flash. Good lord. Okay, just because you could doesn't mean you should. It is very nicely three-dimensional. Oh, okay. Okay. This is a little extra. This is a little extra. Is there any flash there that I need to clean up? No. This is not as bad. Corvus Belli generally do a pretty good job with the cutting, for lack of a better term. They do it all in CAD. They're very sensible around it. I remember the first time the assembly of Bit and Kiss, where Bit is like really three-dimensional as far as miniatures go, and I opened the blister and she's like, oh, she's two pieces, and she just slots in clean. So I assume that they didn't have much choice here. Now, okay, that's on. And the light is kind of killing that. Her hair is a separate piece. Okay. All right. I wonder why Infinity hasn't adopted the terrain placement of Warcrow, because it sucks. You've activated my trap card. Warcrow's terrain placement rules are terrible. They are worst in class. They have been removed in the tournament pack for good reason. So let's talk about that. Terrain placement in a wargame. You can make terrain placement part of the game. You can gamify it. Or you can have it be explicitly not part of the game with just the instruction that both players or the tournament organizer are responsible for having a terrain setup that makes the game good for both players. I will get back to this. Griffland says, do you have any intel on what Cyberplug and Tech Recovery are? I have no idea what either of those things are. No, Griffline, what are Cyberplug and Tech Recovery? Neither of those mean anything to me. All right, terrain setup and why Warcrow's terrain is worst in class. This is the terrain in the rules in the base rules of Warcrow. Just by the way, this is what we're talking about. I need a thing. Metal miniatures assembly. Get yourself one of these, especially if you've got older miniatures that you're working with. These things oxidize, right? This is a metal product. It is subject to oxidization. Older miniatures will have like a layer of oxidation on top. It's fine, it's manageable. But if you just get a wire brush, and especially if you clean off the joins, you're going to just give yourself an easier time because the glue then is not going to bond to a layer of oxidization, and it's not going to come loose because oxidation is just a surface development. And then you also want to generally give a metal miniature just a little bit of a scrub with something like this before you paint and then wash it. This has saved me so much pain. I think the only miniature of mine in Infinity that has had anything like regular chipping issue is the Magari Bagard because it weighs 4,000 pounds, and so it hits anything and the momentum will chip paint. But otherwise, wire brush. All right, so Cyberplug, and so someone did some data mining on assets, and those terms were used. Cool. Okay. No, I have no idea what Cyberplug and tech recovery are. Literally zero idea. That is completely new to me. Cyberplug and tech recovery. Maybe something to do with... So Cyberplug honestly just kind of sounds like cubes, but it could be like a riding skill, potentially. Tech recovery. If tech recovery was on a skill like the Contrabandolero, I would assume it was like a looting skill or something. But tech recovery, yeah, that's an interesting one. No, I have no idea what those do. I am completely at a loss. They sound interesting. The techno-organic skill is not high gameplay impact. It's like 70% fluff. You will not usually have too much of an issue. Like, I would not expect next wave lists to trade heavily on the fact that a doctor or an engineer can repair some of their troops. You've got Dr. Worm in the faction. You've got a couple. You've probably got a couple of good couple of good engineers, and so you might find yourself being like, oh, okay, cool. Like I can, not faff around too much. But a lot of the faction still wants a doctor, and the only doctor that we know about so far is the medtech, who's also an engineer. So I think techno-organic's a little bit of a like fluff skill primarily, definitely subject to future profiles though. Techno recovery may just be a working title for techno-organic. Yeah, could be a thing. Mickey says, "Hi Rob, what do you think about how Corvus Belly went direct to smart cookies with channels such as yourself with the promo and previews?" I don't know what that means. You have to explain that one to me. I sent them through a link to my video. I don't know what a smart cookie is. I would use that phrase to mean something different. I would, if I called someone a clever cookie, that would mean something else. So if you want to explain that one to me, Mickey, now or some other time. I know that, so there is a Corvus Belli creator program these days. They're pretty new to it. They seem to be doing a good job. The initial, this was the first like time they've engaged with creators on stuff like this, and with one tiny fly in the ointment, because time zones are really hard. I think it went fairly well overall. Like it was a good experience dealing with them. Their team, they are marketers. Their marketing personnel have a job to do, but they're professional, and that's all I really want. They've been good to deal with. CB Crew has Cyberplug, and that's fine, but when I tried it, this is a Wendy's. Meaty Bites, yes, this all went together since the start of the stream, including unboxing and talking through and cleaning and stuff. Unicool is a really nice material. All right, so back to what I was about to start ranting about, which was Warcrow's terrain rules. So it is extremely telling and no surprise that Warcrow has moved away from its existing terrain rules for tournaments. And that is for a very good reason, because those rules are what we can only describe as half pregnant. This is in the box. When you have terrain setup rules for a war game, generally speaking, they will exist on a spectrum between gamified and non-gamified. A gamified set of terrain rules are ones like the ones. Oh, this is going to be an issue. Oh dear. Okay, I can already tell this is a two-part join. This is a three contact point join. Gamified terrain rules are ones like the ones in Song of Ice and Fire, and to an extent, the ones in Warcrow, where the game gives you a structure that is part of the game for how you set up terrain. So to give Song of Ice and Fire as an example, because it is a proper example of how to do gamified wargaming terrain setup, in Song of Ice and Fire, the game says that each player places its 2 or 3 terrain pieces. And you are intended, like the game tells you, to place those to your advantage. Each player tries to shape the battlefield. You might have a faction that benefits from swamps or hills, placing things like that. You might have like, oh, my opponent's got ranged attacks, I'm going to place a forest. But you have to put those in positions where you need to bear in mind that you'll, after you've done terrain in Song of Ice and Fire, then you roll for terrain sides. And so there's this like interesting tension, there are limits on how it's done, and it is explicitly competitive. Cool, okay, that works. And then you have games like Infinity, where the terrain is such an important feature of the game that Infinity just says, this is a really nice sculpt. This is the Contrabandolero. I'm going to put her aside for now to let her fix up with that glue because she's got a 3-parter. That's her gun arm. And that scares me. So we will let the rest of her set up on the super glue and move on to something else. A game like Infinity basically says, look, the terrain is incredibly important. Here, whoops, one sec. Just set up terrain to make the game fun and interesting and engaging. And it does not give you rules, it gives you guidelines. You go to the Infinity Tournament Pack, the Infinity Core rules, and they will say, hey, here is approximately what constitutes a good table. The point of the table is to facilitate the game. This is not, explicitly, this is not a competitive part of the game. Both players have an obligation, or the tournament organizer has an obligation, to make sure terrain, this is Pandora, by the way. Everything looks to be here. Nice detail, little bit of flashing. Not, flashing rather than mold lines. One of the things they are very good at these days is that, and I wish some other companies were better at this, there's really not much in the way of mold lines happening here. Like, they've been really clever in how they've cut this. Infinity says it's the responsibility of the tournament organizer, it's the responsibility of the players if they're playing. Just before the game begins, it is not part of the competitive experience. Make sure the table is good. And to make that be, so I'm just doing a quick check. All right, cool. So it is explicitly non-competitive. It's non-gamified. They give you some guidance, but they don't. They give you some guidance, but they don't make it part of the game. Warcrow was the worst of both worlds, where Warcrow says the game gamifies terrain. At the beginning of the game, it tells players to go back and forward, alternating terrain. It does not provide guidelines on how competitive that is meant to be, other than that it is in the game rules and it is gamified, which reasonably leads players toward believing that it's part of the game process. So therefore, I'm trying to win at terrain placement. But it does not provide an off-ramp, and it just says, keep placing terrain until you're both satisfied. What the hell does that mean? What if I don't want any terrain? Do I just say stop? Do I just tap out immediately and we play on a blank table? Well, no, because the other player also, like, it's, and they are the worst terrain rules for any game I have ever seen. And it is not a surprise that Warcrow has moved completely away from them for the tournament pack and just said, the TO sets up terrain. The TO is responsible for making sure that there's good terrain. And I frankly, if I were casually playing Warcrow, I may at some point, but I am not these days. I would do the same thing. I would just be like, ignore the terrain rules completely, set up terrain in a way that looks cool, go from there. The idea of, and this is not to jump on the poor dude who asked this question, the idea that you might gamify terrain setup in Infinity is possibly the single worst change that you could make to the game. Timing alone, like the prospect of having a game start with terrain placement and then, oh god, that would take like an hour. If you gamified Infinity terrain placement, and it would look ass. Oh wow, wow. Again, this is not a sledge on the poor dude that asked this question, but oh hell, wow, that would just yeah, I would ignore that rule. If that was everything that they introduced, and they would not. That's not a thing that will ever come into Infinity. I suspect they probably the fact that they have changed how Warcrow does terrain in the tournament pack suggests to me that they've learned their lesson on that one. It's fine. Like Warcrow was the product of the first generation of the Warcrow wargame was the product of a design team that was very promising, but was kind of learning its trade, and they began with Warcrow Adventures. So not a surprise that something like that is in there. It's a difficult thing to playtest for as well. So, but no, I don't think Infinity should shift to Warcrow's terrain setup for all of the reasons that I have just said. Anyway, the thing that put me off Warcrow was the proprietary dice. Are Warcrow dice the same as Warcrow Adventures dice? If Warcrow Adventures dice are D8s, then probably yes. Proprietary dice are interesting. They're one of those little mechanics where it, they're very appealing from a game designer perspective because they give you really interesting control over the probability space of what happens in the game. They let you do things that you sort of like might be constrained from doing if you're operating just with D6s, just with D20s, etc. And Aristea, for example, is a game that makes excellent use of proprietary dice. I'm not 100% on Warcrow doing the same, but I've played like 5 games of Warcrow, and most of those were under incomplete circumstances. Like most of them were small. 3 of them were me just trying to fiddle around with the rules myself. Like I'm not a Warcrow expert. It doesn't quite resonate with me yet, and I have a number of friction points with the rules. Terrain is one of those, but you can just ignore that. But I will. I have a hobby idea for doing a Scions of Yaldabaoth army done up like really like vivid blues and teals, like Zench demons, like 40k Zinchi demons. I think that would look sick as hell. Um, I am contemplating it, but it's not in the budget right now. And the game does not have a community locally just yet. It's got a little one, and I don't have the time or wherewithal to do community building for a second game. All right, how's the Pandora sculpt going? Being very careful not to cut off hair that might be flash or vice versa. No, that's a nice clean bit. This is all looking pretty good. There's solid contact points. It's a metal miniature, so there are some mold lines, but they're pretty good about them. Not too much flash to clean up. I'm very slightly dreading whatever these leg pauldron things are, but maybe it won't be too bad. Alright, that's her all cleaned up. Let's get her together. Dry fit first. Legs go in. Lovely, that looks good. Get some glue on that. Okay, now that should be fine. There's good contact for the pauldrons. That'll be fine actually. Alright, legs go in. I don't think I cleaned that properly. That's taking a little while to bond, so I'm gonna have to just hold that for a second. Alright. Mickey says, Walker's been a lot of fun. Not prepared to be competitive with it yet because it still feels incomplete and feels like a core rules update maybe in the mid to short future. Look, if I'm being perfectly honest, it's the kind of game where if they ever do a second edition, I will 100% go and check that out. Just because it does feel interesting and promising, and I like Corvus Belli's work as a company generally. Which of these goes where? That goes there. Okay, that's actually a... So this is clever. This is cool. All right. So along here, the legs go in. There are actually this leg pauldron is actually going to act as a bridging join that will keep the legs in place. That's probably not hugely necessary, to be honest. That leg join is a good clean join, but that's kind of cool. You wouldn't need to do that for Unicool because it's lighter weight, but having as much surface area as possible to keep everything in place. Yeah, that slots in nicely. That looks good. We'll do a dry fit for the other one. The issue at this point is that I've got a bunch of that Zappa glue on my hands. So my manual dexterity is beginning to diminish. No, that goes in fairly nicely. Oh, we might have a small issue there. If I've chopped off a bit of something. Which I may have. Alright, this is where the I thought that was flash and that may not be flash issue comes up. So, how is she meant to look there? We are going to consult the box. Pandora, need a picture. The box is completely unhelpful. Alright. So, we've got this. The plug is pretty clear. I don't think that's a miscast. Yeah, okay. I think I've actually gone and done a silly and chopped a little bit of the relevant piece off. We'll fix that up with grain stuff. Such is life. I was being very careful with things like hair and stuff, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's just a sprue join. Nope. Yeah, bastard. Yep, Bond's skin. Yeah, now that that's in, it's not too bad. It's actually not too noticeable. It is there, however. There's a tiny little gap that I may fix up with green stuff. Or I've donked a plug off of her. Alright, let's get the head in next. And then we might go back to the contrabandolero. Now, which way does her head face? Good lord, which way does her head face? Like that. Alright, so she's looking down her arm. Hacker pose. Really don't want too much glue on this. Got it. Alright, cool. That was an easy one. Josh at LOL, can send you a photo of mine. Nah, I'm all good, mate. We're good now. Okay. Has there been any news on the Infinity TV show? Looking for a network to pick it up. Yep. That sounds about right. If they crowdfunded it, television is hugely expensive. I don't think they'll crowdfund that. I think the pilot was extremely promising. Do I have that on? I think I've put her. No, that's right. I thought she was going to be doing a hacker pose, but her arms. No, she's being dainty instead. Oh, that's fine. Alright, we're going to give this the steel brush. This is a very new miniature, so there really shouldn't be any oxidization, but I also don't mind just roughing up the surface slightly. Just one of those things. You never want to lose one of these little arms in a game store. You'll never find the damn thing. Did I play Tag Raid? No, I never played Tag Raid. I am a fairly competitively minded person. There are only so many rules that I can fit in my brain. I can manage two. Generally speaking, I can manage two primary systems, and then anything after that starts to impinge, and I get annoyed that I don't know how to play the game well enough. Tag Raid is obviously just a little secondary piece. By all accounts, it was solid fun. The miniatures were awesome. Okay. Pandora is a piece I'm very keen for. She's actually in my vanilla combined army. I know that there's changes coming. I know that they're doing balance updates, etc. She's a piece that I kind of hope sticks around. Like, I would rather lose the Dartok than her. Just because she's this interesting little grab bag of kit. She's got a better ballistic skill pitcher. She does other things. She's harder to kill. She's no wounding cap. Like, yeah, the Dartok has Trinity, but let the Dartok stay in the Morad Aggression Force. I'm out of frame there, but anyway. Ah, come on, glue. Nope. This is a fairly shallow peg. It's good, like the contact is fine. But Doesn't want to bond super easily. Pandora is one of my favorite hacking profiles in the game. She just does a little bit of everything. She's wonderfully costed. Like, Uhahu is more efficient. Uhahu is a more efficient hacker. Like, that's not a surprise. She's cheap as hell, 19 points, hacking device plus. Pandora is not a hacking device plus. But I don't know, I've got a soft spot for the profile because she's got that interesting little, I love anytime you get a multi-role piece where it gets multiple bits of functionality, and she's either Chain of Command or the Medikit. Chain of Command obviously is new, but the presence of the Medikit was just like, oh, neat. She does two things. I like models that do two things that are not overcosted so often. And this is just the curse of like miniatures profiling in wargames. Wargamer developers have to cost multi-role pieces according to both of the roles that the model can fulfill. And so you end up with a piece that's too expensive to do either of the two things. But Pandora always seemed to thread the needle really nicely. Okay. What do I think of the changes to the Anaconda? It has historically been a maxim that the Anaconda is terrible in every edition of War Machine. Oh, sorry, of Infinity. Wow, I'm getting tired. Can you tell? I went to the gym this morning. Let's have a cup of tea. 3 models down. I am not sure that's true anymore. I think the Anaconda might be okay now. I do think the Anaconda. Look, I will occasionally make comments about the bull track. I will occasionally disparage the bull track, and I will have people jump in and say, but sir, it is immunity armor piercing. That's armor 5 immunity armor piercing means that it is like as good as armor 10 against AP rounds, which is a slightly selective perspective. But now the game has an armor 7 immunity AP tag, and I can only imagine that the bull track players will, of course, all immediately leap onto it, because it's otherwise pretty indistinguishable, right? It's an interesting piece. It's still obviously a 2-wound element. The pilot got a ton of buffs. It's still ballistic skill 13. It's still ballistic skill 13. I think it's doable in a couple of sectorials, and that gets you a build your own HRMC. I am prepared to. Oh fuck me! It's God, 3-part. Don't do this to me, Corvus Belli. I can't manage this. This is the old gun arm holding hand. I'm just gonna best guess this. I've got to just let that sit. So I've got the shotgun arm on. Let's have a closer look. I'm gonna open up Infinity Army on a different page. Okay, let's go into who's got an Anaconda. MMRF. Let's have a quick look. So, firstly, can we duo them in Anaconda? And yes, we can duo the Equipped Tactiques Blind. I'm not pronouncing that. Fire team. 2 Anacondas. 60 points apiece. You'd probably take one of each because stuff it. We're going live. If the operator survives, she still contributes duo bonuses. CC21. That's hilarious. I usually missed out my first look through. Warhorse. Immunity AP. 59 points for a non-armor piercing heavy machine gun but a burst 4 light shotgun, or an AP heavy flamethrower, AP Spitfire, an AP Spitfire and AP Thunderbolt. You probably go one of each. Smoke grenade launcher on the operator. Every bone in my body cries out against the idea that the Anaconda could be good. It is still a 2-wound tag, but it might be playable. The Anaconda can be harassed around a pair of brawlers. I imagine you can wildcard in Starco. Yeah, so you can do 2 diggers, or a digger and a brawler and Anaconda. Digger, brawler, Anaconda probably isn't half bad. That's probably got some merit. I'm not 100% on that as a concept, but because diggers are one of those pieces that's like not as good as they used to be. They're just a guy. I'm gonna get glue on my hands doing this. I already can tell. Please just fit. I didn't dry fit this. Friggin' hell. I hate these kind of joints. It's Nis Hunters all over again, guys. Pray for Mojo. Alright, got it. And don't move. I've got the join lined up. Ah, hell, it glued to my finger. Okay, I think we're good. Just hold. Hold. All of this work for a model that most of the time will not be on the table because it's hidden deployment camouflage. Ah. And we're good. Alright, we got her. That's a lovely sculpt. That is really nice. This is the Contrabandolero. She's in that running pose with the shotgun like by her side. She's looking in a direction. As much as I took the piss a little bit out of the hair being separate, it's really cool. But this model is not going to be on the table like often at all, like ever, because it's hidden deployment camouflage. It'll appear once, do something, and die. I don't know if it was worth the pain. Let's get her on a base. Gonna have to position the foot fairly far forward. Like so. Alrighty. One more done. We'll be around for about another 50 minutes. At which point, just having some tea there. At which point, I will want to go and get some food. Alright, what do we want to do next? Ironside? What else have we got going on here? Rain dancers. I will care more about rain dancers when I know what they can fire team effectively with. Let's get the spicy things done. Alright, let's do the Ironside. Ironsides are cool. It's there as a showcase mini. I mean, Infinity does showcase miniatures, right? Almost everything in Infinity is designed to look kind of cool. They don't muck around with that because it's a 15 trooper skirmish game. Alrighty, how are we looking here? We've got head. This is going to be another 3-part join, but the rest of the sculpt looks pretty comfortable. What's your philosophy on how do you place models on bases with regards to line of fire? Given a choice, so if there is no conflict, or if there's I like to have the head looking in the direction the model would be facing. So I haven't glued this guy down yet, but for example, when I get him on his base, this is going to be looking forward. That makes the most sense to me. It is intuitive to me, and it means that when I look at the miniature, I use that as a rule. Now the Tech Draken I've done as an exception because his gun is pointing in such an obvious direction and the body is lined up as well. I'm not 100% that I won't change that to have this head facing forward when I finally base him the way that he will actually be based on my hex pattern. I'm not sure about that yet. I'll play with him a little bit first and see if it does my head in. But so for example, on the Contrabandolero, she's looking in that direction, so that's the way of the motion of the miniature. Pandora, I didn't do that because I wasn't paying attention. I've done her in the direction that she's walking. Might change as well on... No, we'll keep her, I think. The direction of the motion, usually when a model... Let me unpack that actually a little bit. When I have a model whose head is looking in a direction, generally that means that that is the direction of the implied motion. There are some exceptions, so these two are exceptions. But just, I want to be able to look at a miniature and tell from how it's moving and how it's postured which way it would be facing. And so usually that means the direction of motion, which usually means the head, because we typically will look in the direction that we're walking. I must be careful with this guy after cutting off some flash. Head on... Ooh. Okay. This is bad. It's not going to show up particularly well, but the bottom of the sculpt of the head is there. They've put the flashpoint on the top. They really should have had the flashpoint on the bottom there, like that. And I'm sure there's some kind of something that makes that more difficult than it needs to be. But I now have to cut the top of this man's head off and make my best guess as to how to correctly do so, that is a rare example of the mold could have been assembled better. Fair bit of flash on this lad, but it's a metal miniature. It all cleans off pretty easily. Except for the one bit that you miss, and then you get it painted, then you go, God damn it. I usually notice just after undercoating, like when I'm doing base coloring, that'll be the point where it's like, oh hell, I missed a tab, I missed a nubbin. Alright, let's come on. You're a big bastard. Let's get you off. We got a little bend here now. Let me see that. Bendy tip. That is, I mean, I'm just going to push it back into place. There is no way that survives long term. Do I just wear the pain and cut that now? I don't think so. Because it does look really nice. But there might be an argument for a bit of triage on this. So this is the HMG. That little tip there came bent in package. I like, because it's less than a millimeter wide. We're going to leave it. But I wouldn't blame a person if they just cut that off. It would still look like a gun. And it'll just save you from having constant bendy tip. Alright, was Juggernaut attached to that giant tactical rock? Let me show this off. So, you see the feet there? It's going to make it a real prick if you want to base this guy differently. It's very good for sub-assembly, right? So I'm going to pop this onto a base, I'm going to build a base, I'm going to paint these two things separately, I'll just hand paint the hands. That's fine, but you are married to this. I really need to stop just putting it on camera at that angle. You're married to that. So yes, the giant tactical dingus rock is non-optional. Okay. Ironside so far is looking less complicated than Pandora was, which I like. Just going to adjust the light so that it's not in my eyes, give myself a headache. Pull out the file for some of these last tabs. The Ironside is a profile I'm not 100% on yet. I mentioned this in the review, but he is really, really threading the needle between bling and basics. Albedo is one of those skills that's like, it's the least applicable. It's really nice to have. Like, I do not begrudge a model having Albedo, but once we've added Albedo onto a miniature, and all of the other skills, like, there are so many good skills on an Ironside. Tactical awareness, ballistic skill attack -3, like, that's awesome. Those are like just baseline, fantastic. But it's all on a ballistic skill 13 armor 3 platform, and I think you're going to feel that some games. And when you've got combat instinct as well, you start running into the, wow, I've paid for all of these awesome skills. The basic platform is neither durable nor hugely dangerous. Now, tactical awareness, armor piercing, base attack -3, it should be fine. It should get there. Like, not every model has to be a Hetkari. And I know that they put a lot of work into testing this, so I suspect my mild concerns will be totally fine. But it is just it's on the watch list in terms of how well will this guy do. Ow. These things are pokey. But it's a pretty cool miniature. It's very, everyone, ow, very, bleeding? No. People have observed this, but it's very Shazvasti coded. Reusing some combined army aesthetics, that's totally fine. But I do think it looks pretty neat. It's not quite as... I'm not even going to try there. Not quite as implied motion as some of the other ones. But it's a big dude with a HMG. It doesn't have to be. What carrying case options has everyone found to be their favorite when transporting Infinity miniatures? I use a tool case. Needed a little bit of work because it doesn't come with... Then the interior was not exactly what I needed, but it is robust as hell. And it was cheaper than... And sorry, tool case, I don't mean tool case in the sense of not metal. It's a big plastic kit for carrying power tools, and it came with pluck foam. And my housemate somehow found a sticker that reads, "I am an incredibly niche internet micro celebrity," and gave it to me, which was like, how dare you call me out this way? What is the word that means smaller than micro? But it was amusing, so it's on there. Okay. The head join here is fairly creative. To give themselves some gap between the head and everything else, it's actually the back of the neck that connects in, which I kind of like. I'm going to have to file down his head bit top because that was where the flash was, but we'll let that all glue up first. Not posable because it is an infinity miniature made of metal, although you could probably tinker with it a bit if you wanted to. Ugh. Mickey says, is it one of those troops that will live and die on its fire team options? Not necessarily. Like, we know broadly what its fire team's options are. It's only got a few. I'm on record as having underestimated Shang-Chi, just as like to give one example. I have played because I looked at them and I went, well, they're ballistic skill 13. And that was kind of the end of my assessment. They don't have any visual modifiers, they do have tactical awareness. And I've had absolutely traumatic experiences dealing with Shang-Chi duos. And these guys should at least theoretically be better than that. The duo is expensive. The Drakios team, it's hard to know what he'll do. But there might be a use case literally just for one of these guys. Do you have squares sticking out where your arms connect? Do I personally, or do these guys? Because these guys do, yes. That's Corvus Belli standard. So the profile that I'm actually most interested in, and I have no idea if I'll be able to make it hey Camillo, CSBO says not posable, challenge accepted. Yeah, well you're a genius, mate. Every time you're here, pop a link to your damn Instagram so people can go and marvel at your creations. The profile that I'm actually most interested in is the lieutenant profile, and I think it'll end up being a massive vanity pick that is not viable. But on the very slight off chance that it's not, that is a profile with tactical awareness and a lieutenant order who has disco balls. All right, we're going to sit here holding this like this for a little while because this is a 3-part join, and I've got to just got to eat the pain and pray that I have not glued myself to the miniature. It is part of me now. The tolerances there are good. I haven't run into any issues yet. But a tactical awareness lieutenant heavy infantry with it's a multi-rifle. I'm not going to call it great gunfighting, but he's got good skills. Who can disco ball 2 different places on 16s, or disco ball and reload and shoot. Again, using just one regular order in his orders. That's like, I have paid the same amount of points in Toha for a Takriel officer to basically just do the same thing. And so I think that's an interesting profile. That's going to be the sleeper, and you don't even need a fire team for that guy. Nope, stuff that up. That needs to. So that's going to be cool. Just getting that file down a little bit before I pop it on the base. I've been assembling mostly Conquest because my Infinity collection's relatively complete. And it's been a while since I've assembled metal miniatures. And I do like them, but yeah, you got to do a little bit more work. Not actually, that's not true, not a little bit more work. Where they're easier, they are easier, but I'd forgotten what filing was like. That's a pretty decent little sculpt. He's got gun down range. He doing a shoot? Is that going to stick? Yep. Alrighty. Ow. CSPO says that he's been. By the way, is it CSPO, CSPO, CSPO? how do I pronounce your name acronym, has been converting miniatures missing from a Drew's list that I helped a local write for them ahead of hopefully playing some games. There's an absolutely magnificent bearded conversion that he's done on a miniature that he will probably show off at some juncture. Okay. Oh, I should probably do this one. This is the Hacker Harbinger. It's very nice. A lot of different pieces. Surely it doesn't have a 3-part arm connection. Surely it will save me from that. So we'll do her. Alright. At the risk of triggering another rant, I'd be interested in why you think Drakios is awful. Okay, alrighty. let's pull up his profile so I can refer to it while I am getting this model together. Drakios, Team Achilles Dragon. Now, Drakios is what you would get if there's actually a video idea that I have had someone put to me, and I may do at some juncture, which is if you go and look up, there's a YouTuber called Perun who does. He had a gaming channel originally, but then he did a Ukraine war coverage that blew up, and now he's got, I don't know, 500,000 subscribers. And one of the videos that he did that is fascinating was how would you go about intentionally procuring the worst military possible while still being defensible, right? How would you run a procurement process? And this is all something that like he's sitting there and I'm just experiencing flashbacks from past lives. How would you run a military procurement? It's a fascinating video. It's hilarious even if you are not into the sort of weird specifics of our respective jobs. How would you build a military that is designed to fail by using normal defensible processes? And Drakios is the equivalent of that for profile development in Infinity. Drakios is what would you get if you tried to make the worst Infinity profile possible that was still following the Corvus Belli formula? Because he has so many things that are just like not good, that look like they might be, but they're not. So 6-2 movement, actually that's totally fine. 6-2 move is a wonderful value. That is the best thing about him. Perun travels a lot for work, I believe, but if he will, I have never met him. I do not know him as a person, but he absolutely would have been in and out of the ACT because it's where government and defense are. That man will have walked through Russell offices in his lifetime. I don't know how old he is. I don't know who he is. I watch his content and I really enjoy it. But okay, so starting with 6-2 movement. 6-2 movement is good. Fantastic. We're off to a good start. It is all downhill from here. So his close combat skills to begin with. CC21 martial arts with a high damage EMCCW is just enough close combat to not be good at close combat, but to absolutely have to pay the cost for it. Once you have those skills on a miniature, you are starting to add 3, 4, 5 points worth of capability, but not for any significant payoff. Like you can't windmill slam Drakios into close combat with like a tag and expect that he will win the face-to-face shot, because he's rolling 1 dice on 21s, and the tag will be rolling 1 dice on like 14s. There's just massive margin for failure there, but he's paying a lot of points for it. Okay, so how is he at gunfighting? Well, he's ballistic skill 12. Cool, fantastic. Does he have any visibility skills? Oh, he's got albedo -6. That's incredibly niche. Not bad to have, but you're paying for all of that. Bang Bomb +4 is, again, just not as... You could delete Bang Bomb from every profile in the game that hasn't without adjusting their points cost, and no one would notice the difference, like most of the time. Absolute trash bag skill. I don't know why Bang Bong exists. Bang Bong exists, and it needs to just be replaced with Dodge -3. But it costs points. Okay, cool. He's got ballistic skill attack, continuous damage. Fine. Not a huge deal because he can't hit anything, but fine. Combat instinct, again, expensive. A good skill to have. Combat instinct on models with hacking especially. Any kind of zone of control ARO that you might take, really useful. On a random gunfighting dude, not good. Jump 3 inches, again, just not relevant. Just not a skill that matters. It's fluff, but it costs like a point. Religious Troop does discount him, that's okay. Special operative, fine. Stealth, fine. Again, he can't capitalize on it, but fine. Also, his robots do have it. That's okay. And then terrain jungle again doesn't do anything but possibly cost a point. He's also 1 wound and silhouette 5. So what you basically have here is an extremely fat Fusilier that moves a little faster for 33 points. Like 27 for the FTO option. He is just like he just doesn't do anything other than slurp down 10% of your army's points costs. The only good thing about Drakios is that the Kaimdios, the Kidoimos, I don't know how to pronounce that. The robots are kind of cool. They're actually one of the better peripherals in the game. Again, Bang Bomb on a robot is stupid. Albedo, whatever, is fine. But they are 6-point heavy flamethrower mine dispenser troopers. So that's great. Like 6 points for a mine dispenser on a peripheral. If you could have 2 Kaidoimos, if you could have 2 robots attached to him, I might almost pay the premium, just because then you'd have him running around spewing out mines every turn. But for obvious reasons, they haven't allowed that because it would be good. And Drakios has never, at any point in the history of the game, been good. He's just massively bloated. Like, you could slap an entire wound onto him, just make him Vitality 2, and he's still not great because he doesn't kill anything. But like, there are not many profiles that you could literally add an entire extra wound and still have be kind of mid at that point. That's genuinely impressive. I expect he'll have a little look at as part of the there has been a very robust, as far as I can tell, testing process. A lot of they really cooked on the updates that came out with all of the re-released old sectorials. They really went hard on, and they didn't necessarily need to, is the fascinating thing. Like, if Merovingia had been bad, no one would have batted an eyelid. Like, that's allowed. That's been true forever. Merovingia players aren't prepared for their faction being good. They don't know what to do with that. That's the dog that chased the car. But even Merovingia is like, oh, that's shockingly playable. That seems fine. Like, it's got a lot of the weaknesses that were inherent to Merovingia, but you can link war drivers. You've got disco. Huh. And so I've got a fair bit of optimism that Drakios will see some adjustments, just because I know that their testing process and their development process has been really robust. So my past performance is hopefully no indication of future results. All right, just getting this all set. I actually really like this sculpt, just for reference. This is the Hacker Harbinger. And it's a Vulcan shotgun? Doesn't look like it's a Vulcan shotgun, but it's just a really cool pose. It does have a boob. Literally, I have to put her chest in, which is a bit weird, but I can see why they've cut it that way. All right. Surely that's not. Surely that's not how that sculpt goes. I am. What is the opposite of a mastectomy? Surely that's not how that goes. I'm doing gender confirmation surgery on a metal miniature. Okay, so we've got a little bit of an issue here. This is a bit of the plug, the mold plug for this was behind where the piece slots in, and it's an inversion. So you have to really work to get that out. Yeah, that looks like that's how that goes together. It is not, happily, it's not one of those. There's a miniature in Conquest called the Chapter Mage, which is honestly, it's not horrifically overstated. And I painted mine so that it doesn't look too much like this. But I have a mate who handed me the miniature and was just, "Are you familiar with the phrase, she breasted boobily down the stairs?" It's a little bit like that. This is not that. This is very this is obviously feminine, but it's mostly feminine because of the because of the face, I believe. But they wanted to do something with these. They wanted to do something with these bits sticking out, by which I mean the antennas that she has coming off of like her collarbones, and it's a bit weird. I'm vaguely concerned I'm not doing this correctly, but I'm pretty sure I'm doing this correctly. We will not make the mistake of failing to dry fit the back. That's a fairly smooth join. That's a... Is that bent very slightly? So this is pretty sharp. This is clever. We're going to show this off a little bit. So here's the body. You can see the antennas that she's got coming off of her collarbones there. And this is her backpack. And her backpack connects in two spots to actually be a backpack and a fanny pack. And it leaves a little hollow behind it that's like quite nice and visible. That's sharp. That is a clever little bit of making the assembly process work. I am here for that. Good job, guys. I do not forgive the goddamn guns on these things. I know it's necessary. One day they'll figure out how to just have the gun all be one piece. Like the gun with arms just work. Just put gun arm onto thing. I know it's too difficult with a metal miniature, but still. Alright, let's get this on. Now this might require a little bit of forcing. No, that's gone on just fine. I'm a little concerned about the fit. But I think that's doing the trick. Oh, I've missed a bit. Can I do anything about that now? Get the file in there. It's not hugely noticeable. Alright, let's just see. I'm going to dry fit her head. While we're doing that. Yeah, it seems fine. Alright, let's get that in now. And then while I'm holding it in place, we'll get back to chat. This is going to be... It's going to be fine? It's going to be fine. Yeah. Okay. Oh, that actually went in fairly easily. Why did that just buzz? No, it's just a... Okie doke. How is Unicool for cutting, sanding, and drilling? Cutting, absolutely fine. Sanding, did not find a need to. It cuts cleanly enough that I would not be inclined to get a sander out. So, we'll pull it up again. You can probably just see a little bit of discoloration on top of his head there. That's where I've had to cut clear a plug, but it cut smooth. So, it did not need sanding. I don't know what the material is made of, and because I don't know what the material is made of, I'm very reluctant to recommend sanding. It would probably drill just fine. But because I think it's a hybrid resin, you know your business here. Cispo, you do this in a way that makes sense to you. But I would be reluctant to recommend sanding unless you've done some material safety checks, because I believe it is a resin plastic hybrid of some description. I do not know what the bits are like if you turn it into a dust. All right. This arm that I'm putting on now is possibly my favorite part of this sculpt, and the reason why I wanted to do her. That's a really nice join together as well. So we'll get her on screen. She's just got her hand on her holstered pistol, That's just one piece. The pistol's part of the leg. It's all part of one body. There's like zero chance to screw up the tolerances there. And it's just a really cool pose. That's really nice. I like that a lot. All right, and then we have the Corvus Belli painted hacker arm, which I imagine goes in basically like that. Yep. Do I have any schmutz there? That's a concern. I will get a different file and just scratch that up a little bit, because that's going to be the bit that will come off if it wants to. Okie doke. Almost done with her. Get her onto a base. Hacker arm. Oh no, I took the other arm off. Don't you die on me. Alright, we're good. And with that, we will get her. I don't know what I'm going to... I'll probably just use her as a Harbinger, to be honest. I don't know how often I'm using Harbinger hackers in lists yet. Yes, it is a Sixth Sense hacker. That is good. Sixth Sense hackers are very nice to have. Combat Instinct hacker. Any size 7 tag nearby for a size comparison to the Juggernaut? Got you covered. Give me just a sec. Pretty similar in size. The Juggernaut is longer, is a tiny little bit shorter than a Guija, not by a lot, but a tiny little bit. Like the Guija's gun pops up a bit higher than the Juggernaut. The Juggernaut's tail is kind of at the Guija's shoulders. So the Juggernaut is bigger, but only because it exceeds out in the whatever this dimension is. Very similar in terms of sculpt. So not small, but not inappropriate for a tag. Pretty big though. I imagine the Guija's not the biggest of tags. An avatar, for example, would be bulkier across the shoulders. My avatar is in my box though. Actually, I might go and get him in any case. Just got the Mega Reaper instead. So Mega Reaper is larger. But if you put this guy on a Silhouette 8 base, I imagine they probably considered it at some point, but a Climbing Plus model is just a huge... I just wouldn't want us... This would not work. The base is too large. The Mega Reaper is bigger, but it's not bigger by a massive margin. There's a fair bit of similarity there. If you put this guy on a Mega Reaper base size, it would not feel completely untoward. So yeah, there we go. We'll pop these. It's just... You're in frame now, friends. Okay. Hey, Jake. Thank you very much. That's really kind of you. Mickey notes, the smaller dino reminds me of Symbiote Beast. Fuck, you're absolutely right. Why didn't I think of that? I needed to rebase my Symbiote Beasts anyway. Let me go and find them. I have played my Toha as Sigma Trihedron forever in any case. Yeah, cool. I'm set. That's I mean, like, just cool. Yeah, look at that. Look at it's two. They're the same. Thanks, Pass Rob. I'm actually really happy about that. That's I do need to rebase this guy, and it's going to be a little bit of a pain because he too has tactical rock, but I think I can make that work. The Mutant Symbio Beast, same as this dude, but I'll do something with it. Yeah, that'll have me set actually. I would never have thought of that. Mickey, thank you so much. Um, Alrighty, let's get this hacker on a base. We're just going to glue her by the tactical box. Does she stand by herself? No. No, the gun makes her back heavy. That's fine. Oh, there's a mold line there that I missed. That'll be a future problem. Yeah, we'll probably lean her slightly forward. Her center of balance is just a tiny little bit off based on how she's sitting naturally, and that's the back leg is acting as a backstop for contact there. She needs to just lean a very tiny bit forward. Corporate wants you to tell the difference between these two dinosaurs. Technically, this one is more of a cat, but okay, what do we want to do next? I still haven't figured out what these guns are for. There's a shotgun. Oh, it's for the cliff racer. Oh, let's do him. We're for out there. Cliff racer. Here's the cliff racer. We're going to do him because 2 guns means that I am not subject to a 3-part gun join. All right, let's take a look. Oh, let's take a look and have a cup of tea. All right, we've got some wings, arms, legs, torso, body. This shouldn't be too difficult. Fair bit of flash as before, but that's fine. The patented Corvus belly, jumping over a tactical rock so that we have a sense of airborneness. Nothing wrong with that. Actually vaguely missed the fractor sculpts. I actually don't think I ever got around to painting my fractor. Mostly because I cut them all up for conversions for my Sigma Trihedron, but I think I've still got one hanging around somewhere. Okay. Alright, so we've got our first hurdle here. This is quite doable, but this is a tricky cut. I'm actually just going to take this off in 2 parts. Get that off, and then get that plug out. This is this is fine. It's better than the Pandora one. It's just that the plug connects with a recess, and it connects in multiple places. So I'm probably going to have to do a little bit of a file there, just to get that into a decent spot. Alrighty, then we've got the arms. He's got, I think this is the flamethrower light shotgun profile. That looks a lot like a boarding shotgun. That's a heavy gun. So I'm not sure which profile this is technically meant to be. Because the Contrabandolero has a smaller gun than this, and from memory she's boarding shotgun or submachine guns only. So I don't know what this weapon is. It looks like a zapper, maybe, but I don't... Does he have one of those? Does the boarding shotgun, does the forward observer profile have a zapper? Micro, hey Ed, how you doing? Mickey says, I wonder if my long arms will proxy as anything. That's the only way they'll see. Surely. Surely someday. Someday. Is a resculpt of Toha in the works? Almost certainly not. Toha never sold particularly well. They had a crack with Spiral Core, and Toha is one of those factions that has a small number of players who like it a lot, and I will defend that as an aesthetic choice. Zapper is a small template, the Emerite Griff line, yes. I will defend, like, niche appeal as quite a good design decision, actually. Where, and I've sort of said this stuff before, you don't want things that appeal to everyone a little bit. You want things that appeal to a few people a lot, and then you build a game out of that, and everyone can find something that they're really compelling, like finds that they're really cool, find really cool. However, Toha and Spiral Core historically have been, as much as like I really like them, and their players, the players that have played them have really liked. Like you have people who really enjoyed Toha, really enjoyed Spiral Core. They did not land with the just sales volume. Basically, they were too far along that spectrum, and so they never really sold. I suspect Corvus Belli didn't lose money on them, but the company has to has to make a profit. They've got bills to pay, people have got families to support, etc. It's not publicly traded, but it's still got to pay its staff. Alrighty. I need to actually check which profile this one is. I think this is the Forward Observer. If only someone had done a video that they could go and look at. Or in this case, actually a slideshow. Where are you? Cliff Racer. No, so there's a boarding shotgun with a flash pulse. There's a light shotgun with a light flamethrower, and there's a zapper with a submachine gun. What profile is this miniature? I mean, it must be the light shotgun. But there's no Contrabandolero with a light shotgun. The Contrabandolero only has a boarding shotgun. So, behold, boarding shotgun, light shotgun. It's half again the size. It's the same model as well. It's this. Okay, not sure what's going on there. Doesn't matter. This is Infinity. I will use anything as anything if I need to. I have 3 Yuching heavy infantry in my carry case to be more mayors in the next game that I play. So don't care, not fussed. Is a bit weird. Alrighty. Bit of flash on this one. Does it say the profile on the box? It might say it in the materials. No, the box is super light. If you went to the pre-order page, you might find it, or in the like the marketing copy would probably have it. There's a QR code that I am not going to scan. It'll probably say that somewhere. So it has to be the light shotgun, because this, unless this is if this is a flash pulse, it could be the boarding shotgun flash pulse, or it's just, I guess they all have pistols, right? Where are you? Oh, pistol. Yeah, regular pistols. If this chonky thing is a regular pistol, which it could be, it's the most extra regular pistol that has ever been introduced in the game. This could be the Forward Observer Cliff Jumper. Otherwise, I've never seen a combined army light shotgun. These are all humanish weapons. Well, sorry, not all. There is a mixture of combined army-looking things and Shazvasti-looking things. And like that shotgun is a very shotgunny shotgun. I don't actually know what this. I actually don't know what the Shazvasti shotguns look like, now that I think about it. So these could be primarily Shazvasti weapons. Alright, how are we doing here? This is all looking okay. It's a bit rough there, but should be fine. Nope, a little bit of flash. Get off you. Get out. Get out. Go. This needs cleaning up. Alright, that should be good to assemble. We will pull out the steer brush for that. Humogenitor Dice 4 says, love videos. Thank you very much, mate. My pleasure. Alright, get the wings and their join points set. There's a little bit of oxidization on this guy. Again, you expect that. Even on new miniatures, you expect a bit, so you just clean it up with a steel brush. Also scuffs the surface, which gets you a better bond. Just saves you pain in the long run. Admittedly, at the cost of pain in the short term, if you accidentally poke your finger on one of these bristles, because They do not muck around, they hurt, but it's still worth doing. And then after off stream, I will literally go through. I'll probably undercoat these guys tomorrow. Off stream, I will go through and I will just wire brush all of them, just on all of the surface areas, because that will do the same thing effectively. It means that the undercoat will bond. The Chazvasti shotgun is quite shotgun. Okay, yep. Mostly leaning on Shaz weapon designs. That tracks. I am going to dry fit that before I... What the... That's got to be a piece of flash, right? There's a little chunk hanging off the side of his chest connection. I'm going to cut it off. I'm going to roll the dice on that because it did not fit in. Am I assembling him correctly? That's a little weird. How do you look, buddy? Let me get a picture of you on the... Okay, so according to the picture... Ooh, alright, we might have our first... We might have our first slightly scuffed connection point. I'm going to get some more of the metal off of this interior. I think someone else who had access to these miniatures early access raised a similar concern. So he is meant to... P-Chain, how often do I stream? Very rarely. I'll do some video game stuff occasionally. Mostly just I'm an Australian. Time zones are only something that's doable so often. I think I found the issue. There's a whole bunch of just random schmutz metal on the inside of that. That's going to be a bastard to get out. Let's just see if we can do it with a hobby knife. There are some live streams if you go back, but I don't have a regular streaming schedule. It's the channel is strictly a hobby, and weekends are a finite resource. And otherwise, I am Australian, so the best time to stream is about now. Is this like because I can get Americans in then? But this is a Saturday morning. Okay, let's try this again. Alright, after doing that, we've got a better connection point. But this is a little imperfect. And I can't help but wonder if I'm missing something here in terms of how this is meant to go together. So this is probably the first one we've run into where how this joins is having a bad time. We're going to make some educated guesses on where we might remove material to make this a better fit. Josh, if you've done your one of these and you're still in the channel, still in the chat, let me know what you did for the Cliff Racer. Because this should be a very easy and clean join, and it is not. I can see how it's meant to go together. But cliff jumper with boarding shotgun. Okay, so that's a flash pulse then. Fair enough. So the big thing he's holding, the big sidearm is a flash pulse. I can see how this is meant to go together. And it currently doesn't want to. So how do we fix that? Where is the... Take some material off of the join point. I'm not going to break out the green stuff for this. Not yet. But we are going to just pull some material off of that. That's helped. So it does look like part of the issue is that this bit here slots into his Tristan put. Yeah, it's not a hugely clean joint. Okay. So we're going to remove a bunch of materials. So this is the first one we've had an issue, which is fine. That happens. Metal molds like expansion, contraction, etc. Looks like something in the molding process has just resulted in there being more metal here than they want. And so that's produced a situation where you've got a plug that doesn't quite fit the socket. So it's getting better as I do this, but it is still imperfect. It's getting better though. That's improved things a bunch to the point where I might be happy with that. Can we get that any further in? So we'll take a little bit more off. Alright, so we got the first issue here. That was such a pain to copy paste on the phone. Thank you, Ed. No green stuff? Boo. Look, I said I will not get out the green stuff on screen. I know my way around it, but it's your domain, Camilla, not mine. I don't want to take anything off the sides there. It's too much of an effort. It might be where the issue is, though. We'll get just a bit more material out of that interior recess, just to give me a bit more space. And I think there's a big-ass mold line up his back. Yeah, that's done. Okay, so for those in the audience who are looking at this, getting this kit, when you go to assemble the cliff jumper, this join here, take a bunch of material off the metal plug recess. If you do that, it will fit okay. But that took some absolute doing. Because the area that you've got to remove the glue, so glue, I've just put too much glue on this, that's all I said that. The area that you've got to remove the metal from is going to like be tricky to access, but it will get there. All right, let's get him in. There we go. There we go. Okay, cool. We'll let that set up. There's a little bit of like a gap or something, but I think that's okay. Not hugely visible. So we'll get the leg on. Get the leg over while we are. What's that join? Oh, come on, don't be a bastard as well. Why is this gonna? Is this gonna be a prick? Might be too much on this one as well. So there's a very obvious join because there's a knife holster there. What's a profile that rarely sees play, but with a small adjustment could be made much more attractive? Give me a faction. What faction are you interested in? And I will attempt to answer. Not every faction will have. Alright, we need to remove some material there as well. Rarely sees play as an interesting one in any case, because shaving metal with a hobby knife is always one of those fun experiences that you're just waiting for something to go terribly wrong. Alright. I think there's so many profiles in Infinity that, like, technically I think most of them rarely see play. So to take a Panoshian dealer's choice. Nockenen's Valorheimer. Yeah. So dealer's choice. I had a thing and then it gone from brain. Dealer's choice would be the Peacemaker +1 burst boarding shotgun because it is outcompeted a little bit by the mine layer profile. People will usually read for the mine layer, but +1 burst on a boarding shotgun is actually really interesting on a model like the Peacemaker. I would be inclined to do something like make that a specialist, for example, give it forward observer or specialist operative. And at that point, it's much more materially distinct from. Ooh, that's a scuffed ass join. It's not hugely visible. Ooh, kind of breaking and resetting that. Yeah, there we go. That's better. So something like, hey, one of the Peacemaker profiles is a specialist or has a sensor or something, right? The +1 burst boarding shotgun, because people just reach really, really by default for the mine, and I can't even blame them for that because the mine layer profile is really cool. but that would be a small change. Nokken in Svalaheimer. What would we do? What would we do to Nokkens to push them up a little bit? Let's have a look at the profile. Um, hmm. God, they're very expensive a single wound. Yeah, get rid of Bang Bomb and make them cheaper. Yeah, I think it's actually get rid of Bang Bombs. God. They've also got the curse of the Combi Rifle Light Shotgun, which really blows out a regiment's cost. Beg pardon. Okay, time for tea. What else? Micro notes camo on Nokken. I think Nokken have to not have camouflage. That would be a really big adjustment. Removing Bang Bomb and 1 point of willpower, or moving them to make them cheaper, or moving them to 6-2 movement. Oh, Silver Star Rovers, that's a good one, because those guys really need some love. What do we do about Silver Star Rovers? Got to be small, right? Can't be, but they're line infantry. Arm 3, BTS 6, heavy pistols. What do you do? I can't think. I'm not sure I can think of anything to us that you can do to a Silver Star Rover that doesn't just break them. That's the problem. They don't gunfight well enough, and they're built to be your gunfighters. Like tactical awareness, blah blah blah. Yep, cool. All this stuff is kind of neat. But what a Silver Star Rover needs to do is to be the gun point man in a Silver Star team. So I think they need. How does these wings go on? I think Silver Star Rovers need a gunfighting skill. I am extremely reluctant to recommend like ballistic skill attack -3, but it might be ballistic skill attack -3, which is just like, oh, well, cool, cool. They're just very, very good now. Yes, that would in fact make them very, very good. Are these symmetrical? I can't tell. If they aren't symmetrical, it doesn't matter. If they are symmetrical, it doesn't matter. Okay. We are just going to have to do our best with this, I think. This has been the roughest assembly so far, like comfortably. There are some joins on this slide. Very cool miniature. Okay, the wings aren't going in too badly. That's a blessing. But there have been some joins on this lad that have just been like, oh, okay. Not unmanageable, but the toughest one of these so far, particularly after the Unicores, which were just like, oh, cool, it's literally as easy as plastic miniatures. Marksmanship, God, that would be good. I don't know how much marksmanship pushes a profile cost. You could do that. You could honestly possibly get away with marksmanship on Silver Star Rovers, actually. You might do something like ballistic skill 12. Ballistic skill 12 marksmanship. You could get away with that. Warhorse, yeah. So the other option would be like give them a bunch of skills that let them ignore stuff, like Warhorse, etc. But they have to be able to gunfight. And ballistic skill 13 with no modifiers is just like, okay, that's gone together fine now. Good. Sometimes also it needs extra fire team keyword. Silver stars are a fire team keyword. Like I vaguely considered saying, yeah, FTO Nokken. Hell, give Nokken a duo. That'd do it. That's compelling. Give him a duo. All right, Shazvasti. Getting into the dark places here. Shazvasti Cadmus. Filtered by skills, combat jump. I don't actually think the Cadmus is bad. I do think I would give the Cadmus seed the like combat jump pH equals 13 because 12 is a little tricky, but the develop shape chest mine situation is actually like they do some cool stuff there. Gun go forward, gun go in air. Once again, consult box, which I keep putting in the bin and then having to grab. Gun go kind of in air. I think Cadmus are actually a little underrated and are fine profiles, but I would give them like lands on a 13 or a 14. That would be the only thing that I would consider changing for them, and I don't think it's critical. Oh, all right. Yeah, genuine advice is if you want to use Cadmus, use Cadmus. They do okay. You can easily take two of them. You take usually just the cheap profile, like the 19-point boarding shotgun. I feel like they used to have an assault pistol, but I could be wrong. That would be something I would consider. I would also consider. Oh no, ballistic attack +1 burst. Yeah, the ballistic attack +1 burst. They're fine. That's a burst 3 boarding shotgun or a burst 4 combi rifle. Yeah, no, Cadmus are okay, my dude. Cadmus are fine. I didn't even catch that. All right. Yep, Cadmus are good. God, that's a burst 3 boarding shotgun or a burst 2 chest mine / nanopulsar. Yeah, they are just fine. All right. Happily, the rest of this guy is going together okay. The leg was mildly tricky, but it's ended up being fine. I needed to remove a little bit of material, and where the body joins the torso. Um, oh, improvements to make an Alpha Sid playable, and then we'll talk about GoPods. Okay, that looks really nice. I'm quite happy with this guy as a troop. Oh, come on, don't fall off. There's a little bit of lee on how his arm goes into his body. I'm just adjusting the angle. Come on, come on. Come on, just sit, just bond, you ass. Alright, while I'm doing this, I'm going to open up the Alpha Sid. God. God, what do we do about the Alpha? I mean, the Alpha Sid is not Drakios, at least. Like, that's something. Not even in Vanilla Hackers. I mean, it's Rama, Task Force, and Dashat only these days? Oh, what do we do about the Alpha Sid? Is it as bad as I remember? Yes, alright. Combat Instinct, Sixth Sense. You do not need both of those skills. You don't, Josh, don't scan. Don't scan. Morphoscan is a fluff skill that you will use occasionally. Cadmus is a model that lands and then attacks with burst one, +1 burst. It's fine. Just don't scan. The Alpha Sid. Okay, so firstly, we've got to cut one of the two: Combat Instinct or Sixth Sense. You do not need both. I think Combat Instinct is the better one to keep because we're not linking this guy particularly much. I really want this to sit at a slightly higher angle and it's fighting me. So that's the first thing, because those cost points. Cut the Fizz does not need to be 14. Cut the Fizz down to 12. Give him the Azrael dodge is bad. Do that, because it's Hack Islam heavy power armor. And so you do both of those things and you immediately get the points cost down. With that, you can do things like give +1 ballistic skill. These guys are meant to be like the veterans of 100 campaigns kind of shit. So Warhorse makes a lot of sense. Tactical awareness would be a consideration. I think they do need to be ballistic skill 14. I'm going to just put him in the direction that the gun is pointing. I think it's just too difficult to make them work without just a better ballistic skill score. Pistol, HMG. You could probably juice the pistol a little bit. So many skills. I think as soon as you start cutting some of those superfluous skills on the Alpha Sid, he comes together a little better. Like at that point, he starts to work. He does need those. God, I've put him facing the wrong direction on that base. Whatever. But I think as soon as you start to cut things down, just get the Alpha Sid down like 5, 6, 7 points, and he's okay at that juncture. All right, what else do we want to do? I don't hugely care about the Harbingers, to be perfectly honest. What do we get? 2 of those other ones? They've got the boy band haircuts. maybe. Rain dancers. Okay, so we should do a rain dancer. And at that point, we'll have been live for a couple of hours, and I can go and have a coffee and some lunch. Which rain dancer do we think looks cooler? Well, there's the gun sword lad who's got raging bendy sword issues. I should probably fix. Which are the two? Someone suggest a which rain dancer profile looks cooler? Probably the one with the bendy sword issue. I know they both look really nice. Oh, no, hang on. The Red Fury has a 3-point connection on the gun arm. Right, we're doing the other one. How bad does that look? It doesn't look too bad, but I'm not dealing with it right now. I've done 2 of those already this stream. So Rain Dancer here will be the last lad that we'll do, I think, and then I'm going to go and have a bagel or something to that effect. Oh, that sword is bendy. Okay, so this came out of the packet. I've already connected this a little bit. This is going to bend again at some point in future, so that's a little bit of a concern. The body sculpt, nicely detailed, no miscast, looks good. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Yeah, the Red Fury. No, I'm not assembling. No, Josh. Is there any unexplored or underdeveloped rule space that you found yourself thinking there could be a rule for that during play? Kind of the opposite in some respects. There are a couple of Bang Bomb, which we've already discussed. Ooh, did I just remove material that I shouldn't have? It's not too bad. Yes, a little bit. Fucking damn it. We've got to make that look good now. I was going after a very, very annoyingly positioned. That's actually fine. That'll look okay. That won't be noticeable. I will have to clean that up. The clippers just took a little bit of his dress off. Going after a very annoyingly positioned bit of flash. That'll be okay. All right. Bang Bomb is a rule that you could delete and no one would ever notice. It shouldn't exist, and although it's not necessarily the case that like there should only be X rules in a game, the more stuff that you can cut, the more mental space you free up for players, right? In terms of things that there should be a rule for, that there isn't. Having 2 models join together and form Voltron. And I'm mentioning that just because I thought of it when someone said Cyberplug on the it's a rule that we think might exist on the data mined profiles for the next wave lads. What else? Rules that don't exist but could. It's a difficult question to answer. What does the game not allow you to do that it would be good to do? Because that's kind of the thing. It's like, what is the moment where you go, I should be able to do X? And Infinity is pretty good at giving players many tools. So, intimidation, AI motorcycles 2-in-1. How would I improve Bang Bomb other than deleting it? It needs a reconsideration. It needs to do something. So Bang Bomb, I expect, is meant to be. It's never been completely clear, but I believe Bang Bomb is meant to be like a flashbang. And so it needs to have some kind of an effect where that is reflected, where it's like flashbang. Oh, cool, something happened. So you could make it into a weapon, where it's face to face. It has the stun ammunition property, something like that. So you could make it like this model dodges an arrow, it gets this bonus. If it succeeds, it inflicts a save that does stun. You could basically make it into a ballistic skill weapon. Morale, actually, that's been raised. So there's intimidation. Something being physically terrifying would actually be a really cool rule to have, where it's like models that suffer a hit, like terrifying or intimidation or something, where models that suffer a hit from this weapon must pass a willpower roll Doesn't that just turn it into a flash pulse? Yeah, it's a flash pulse that uses fizz for flying. Yep. It does just turn it into a flash pulse. But it would still make Bang Bomb do kind of something more. Because you get the dodge movement as well, right? That's the only thing I can think of off the top of my head about like making Bang Bomb do something without just deleting it entirely. Because it doesn't need to exist. You can easily have a facsimile of that kind of effect with a different rule. Intimidation would be a really cool one, like terrifying or something like that. Okay, is this ready to go? Yep, cool. Working resolve roll kind of effects like morale into a game isn't easy when the game doesn't currently support it. Like the closest that we've got is auto pass and auto fail guts, right? Guts is not exactly morale. You'd need to add like a terror effect into the game, you'd almost need to add a new condition. And I don't know what it would be. Because that would be a really powerful rule where you force things to make willpower checks to take actions or something like that. But the space could be really interesting. Alrighty. Yeah, a teleport rule, something lets you re-enter hidden deployment. Something lets you take back off and combat jump again. Why can't I fly? Why can't I? God, oh Jesus, we're not prepared for a fly high is not a rule that needs to exist in any game ever again. Warhammer Fantasy tried it. We don't need it again. All right, this is. That's having a time. There was a question somewhere up. I'm just gonna scroll back up really quickly. Someone asked a question uh, about vehicles, and I think it's moved past. No, that's all right. Someone did ask, how's the playability of the box? How does it play out of the box? I think fine, but I would definitely if someone was starting Combined Army with this, 100% get yourself a remote pack, a support pack as well. Get you will need Imatrons, you will need R drones, you will need a Q drone. You should probably get Dr. Worm. Like get the combined army support pack because out of the box you've got the combined army effect on these guys. It's expensive light infantry. Oh, this is just being an absolute ass. Just glue, my dude. All right, follow up. What could the journalist special skill do in play to make it interesting? Something to do with the VPs, but that would potentially break the game, like significantly. That just doesn't want to go. I'm sitting here holding this, and it's just like, nah, I don't want my gun arm out. It's not on. Can I get that in angle? It's his dingus cannon there. What would we do with the journalist skill to make it playable? What is the profile that needs... okay. The question was, what profile do I think needs a nerf or points increase, and why is the GoPod? The GoPod is not good. It's not bad, but it's not good. The GoPod is so heavily countered by so many things in the game. You skeet shoot that thing down. I think other vehicles are mostly kind of a little bit weak. I am being made an absolute fool of by this join. I'm just kind of breathing on this thing because it does act as an accelerant because of how superglue, how CTA adhesive was developed as a medical suture. But this just doesn't want to join. Come on, Isaac, do your thing. Yeah, the GoPod is... If you are dying to the GoPod, invest in mechanical counters, hunt it down and kill it. Any model with Warhorse or a visor can put the GoPod in the dirt really quickly. Both, if you can get them, you just annihilate that thing. The next wave bundle is like 315 points. So you need to leave stuff out or substitute. Yeah, leave stuff out. You don't want all of these. You don't want all of these harbinger infantry. Yum, 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 yum. Get a little bit of... I have not had to use saliva as an adhesive on superglue miniatures for an incredibly long time. Has that done it? That's done it. I don't necessarily endorse licking miniatures that have superglue on them, but I didn't have a choice there. Um, what does the journalist skill actually do? It is relevant only in campaign play. Is what it used to do, at least. I actually don't know these days. If only I had Army open and could click on a skill journalist. Ah, it doesn't even link in the wiki. It does nothing. It does literally nothing. It gives you access to a 3-point flash pulse. Oh, we've got another real son of a bitch of a flashpoint here. You're going to make me remove material. There's a tassel on his sword. Oh, it's actually just a tassel. It's just a flash. God, made a fool of. I thought that his sword had a cool little like tassel. No, it was just flash. I would have painted it as that as well. All right. This guy has not been a difficult assembly, apart from the fact that that gun arm just decided it didn't want to cooperate. All right, just about good. I am definitely worried about this man getting major bendy sword syndrome in future. The thing about metal is that once it's bent once, it's easy to bend again, but there's not a lot we can do about that. He's postured in a way where you know it's absolutely going to happen as well. I think I need to make that... So here's another thing. The sword looked slightly curved out of the barrel, but my brother in Christ, this is a gun sword. Like, that has to be straight, right? What does it look like on the box? Please tell me that they didn't give me a curved gun sword. It's straight on the box. All right, cool. So we're gonna just straighten this up using the flat edge of the file. There we go. Okay. That'll do. We're not gonna mess with this too much because again, you don't want to introduce metal fatigue. Nice straight sword. Just file the edge down a little bit just for... There we go. Okay, cool. We'll give that more of a scrub given how much of a bastard the last one was. Dry fit that. Yeah, campaign skill like Cube 2.0. Yep. Alright. Does that want to go... You gonna fight me? Is this gonna be okay? It looks fine. Get some glue in there. One last bit of glue on my fingers before it's lunch and coffee time. Get in there. Come on, you can do it. One of the nice things about this body otherwise is that it's a single piece. It's just the arms. This is actually a really easy assembly. There we go. Ah. Model becomes regular if duoed with a named character. That's hilarious. There could be a skill in the game actually that is like that, where it's like model is irregular but becomes regular under certain circumstances. I mean, obviously, yes, inspiring leadership exists, but there used to be things like that, where if you had an irregular lieutenant, but you could have a model where the rule is becomes irregular if it joins the fire team, or becomes regular if it joins a fire team. What would the other things that we would use there be? Like, it becomes irregular if it's in a... I'm not sure what to represent, but it would be an interesting, like... Interesting weird thing that you could do with battlefield circumstances. This model becomes regular in loss of lieutenant. That's incredibly stupid. Don't do that. Alright. Just getting him on the base. Nope, doesn't like that. Doesn't like that at all. Come on. I'm just gonna prop him up against the cliff jumper. There you go. No, I can't. Yeah, because I need to... The last thing we need to do is to get this Ironside, who has that flash on his head that I need to take care of. On this little like headband thing that he's got. Got to be really careful here because I don't want to remove material that's meant to be there. There was a big old plug on top of his head. So we just need to get that done. I think that's good. This is a nice thing about metal miniatures, is that you get so much more control with a file than a hobby knife on plastic. I'm very used to using a hobby knife on plastic these days, but the metal just gets you a better result. And then we needed to also just adjust her center of balance slightly. So she's in like that. I wanted her leaning slightly forward, so we just literally just bend her at the angles. Yep, that's better. And we're done. There's a rain dancer and some line infantry harbingers. There's also this little boy. I don't know what I would ever use this little squid man for. I have the HVT model holding the ball. I have painted and really like, so I think he'll be my warcore if I ever need. If anyone in Canberra wants a glyph warcore, do please reach out. Anyway, becomes regular after witnessing war crimes. Yeah. Rules question. If a lieutenant gets isolated in their active turn and becomes unisolated in the same active turn, do you go lost a lieutenant? No, you do not. And you actually, I believe, can access your lieutenant order. That one I'd have to check. The loss of lieutenant check is a thing that happens at the beginning of your turn. You only go into loss of lieutenant if you are in that state. If you meet the requirements for that state, i.e., you have an isolated or null state lieutenant at the checkpoint, so beginning of your round. Ed, if you want this, literally CB sent me this stuff, and I do not need this, lad. So by all means, I would be happy to pass that on. Come to the next infinity. Okay, it's 1:30 where I am. That's 2.5 hours. I've had a good time. Been nice to chat to everyone. We've got quite a lot of things assembled, and I now have an impetus to get these Serta beasts based so I can use them as more tech trackers. No idea at this stage how long the next wave pre-release cycle, for lack of a better term, will go. I would expect Army will be updated like pretty soon. They've got more resources that have been on that. There's more of a playtesting team now, so it surely won't be too far away. But specific dates, no idea. So until then, we're in speculation mode, playing off of just the stuff that is available here. But I hope very much that you've had a good time. Nice to have everyone just come and hang out. And I will. I've just seen that CSPO is going to try and make it next weekend. That would be awesome, dude. I would really like that. It'd be great to see you. It'd be great to see you play. Have yourselves a good afternoon, everyone, and I'll see you next time.